Welcome to the City Council work session for 8 September 2020. Everybody's here except Mrs. Pacheco. I'm sure she'll be here shortly. So we're going to go ahead and start with presentation and discussion items. And the first list is the September 10th, 2020 council meeting. And if I can find my place.
And then tell me where it is. This is it right here.
I get my fingers to work. There we go. Now we're going. Okay. Call to order, roll call, invocation, pledge of allegiance. Then we have the acceptance of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions, deletions, corrections for the agenda?
Sure.
Okay. The consent agenda, the next will be the city manager's report. Madam City Manager, is there anything that you want to share with us?
I don't have anything at the moment, Mayor, but I will on Thursday night.
Okay. Any questions for the manager? Okay, good. Let's see, the next couple items are approval of the regular city council meeting for August 13, 2020. Were there any additions or corrections to that we need to fix before the meeting on Thursday?
Nothing I saw.
Okay. Item 2.2 is the special meeting on 1 September. Any corrections or changes to that one?
Not much we could say about that.
Okay. Well, if there was a correction if there was a correction on the page, you could talk about it, but, okay. Item 2.3 is public improvements release for a number of lots in the Summit Heights subdivision. Any questions on 2.3 on the consent agenda?
Let's see.
Yeah, just one. Can do you have that map, like the image of the road
Go to planning and
of
zoning.
Brookshire Drive? Yeah. Is this cul-de-sac ending right on Savannah Drive like that? Is that really how it's gonna be? Like opening up?
No.
All-
No, it doesn't actually open up into Savannah Drive. Sorry.
Chantilly.
There's a wall.
There's a wall.
There's a wall right there.
There's actually a wall that separates the cul-de-sac from Savannah Drive.
So that big cul-de-sac just serves those two properties?
That is correct, and provides for a turnaround for emergency vehicles.
Okay. Yeah. I was just curious about that. It just seemed, because I know after the initial 2 years, when we have to maintain all those, and two homes probably won't bring in enough revenue to make up for all the pavement that we have to maintain. But
That's a good point.
it does have to, they need a turnaround if there's a wall
Yeah,
there.
you
so.
need a certain radius for the fire trucks.
I forgot all of this was walled in.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions on that one?
Could we just have Jeff brief it a little bit?
Jeff, would you
since
brief
it's-
that for us, please?
Since it's new and some of the council members might not have gone through this yet.
Of course, I would be happy to. Can you hear me okay?
Planning and zoning.
No, your mic is not on. There it is.
It is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh. Oh.
5 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
Oh, and it was
Yeah, so Canyon Vista LLC is requesting that lots 97 through 121 and 179 to 187 in the Summit Heights subdivision be released from the third-party trust agreement to allow for the sale of the lots. This request would only release 33 of the 90 lots in Phase 2. The city recently amended the subdivision regulations, as you recall, to allow for a partial release of lots in a subdivision prior to the completion of all public improvements, provided the public improvements serving the released lots are completed. Now, in this case, the public improvements such as street, curb, and gutter adjacent to the released lots have been completed. Sidewalks are actually in the process of being completed, but they should be completed prior to the certificates of occupancy being issued for each of the properties. The public improvements are accepted for maintenance by the city following final inspections by Public Works. In this case, Public Works has completed their final inspection of the improvements and determined that they meet the city's construction standards. Acceptance by the City Council would also start the 2-year warranty period. As a reminder, the developer guarantees the improvements for 2 years. Any defects within the 2-year warranty period requires repairs by the developer. Security is acquired by the city as an assurance that the repairs are completed. And this does conclude staff's report.
Thank you, Jeff.
I have a question.
Please.
So, can you kind of explain, just for, I guess, my benefit, and everyone else might get this, but, so I know some of those, there's already houses up, but a lot of it isn't. What does it mean that we're releasing it from the trust?
Sure.
Can you explain that?
Thank you, Mr. Mueller, Councilmember Pacheco. So third-party trust basically means that the city is a third party to the release of these lots. In other words, they can't sell these lots until the city tells the title companies they can be released. Okay, so we basically have a hold on the sale of these lots. So what we're saying is we're now granting permission to release these lots out to be sold to private homeowners. So that's what this is allowing us to do. And by making these improvements, completing these improvements, we're saying that they are now ready to be released.
Okay. So we hold that lease, or we stay a third party until the improvements are complete, and then we allow it?
That's correct. It's a little bit different than a monetary security, where like a bond actually is money. In this case, we actually have an interest in the property, which we're holding on to until it's time to release those lots.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Jeff. We now go on to new business. Resolution 2020-54, which is an agreement, CDS 2 LP Phase 2 Casa del Sol Apartments. And I'm sure that's Mr. Pregler.
It is indeed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Let me get the presentation up here. Okay. Oops, so this request for a development agreement pertains to property located at 1020 South Carmichael Avenue, occupied in part by the Casa del Sol Apartments, which is a low-income tax credit senior apartment community, which will serve people 55 and older. So the triangular shaped parcel which you see in front of you is adjacent to Timothy Lane Park to the east, the Meadow subdivision also to the east, Buffalo Soldier Trail to the west, the Sierra Vista Carmichael Apartments to the north, and Golf Links would be directly south of this particular parcel. Now the first phase, as you see on the screen here, has been completed and was completed in 2012, also through a development agreement. And it consists of 3 4-story buildings containing 88 apartment units on the northern 3 acres of the site. The second phase, which has received tax credit approval and which we'll be submitting a site plan shortly for, proposes 3 similar buildings containing 80 apartment units surrounded by a pool, clubhouse, and amenity area on 2.35 acres. And then the third and final phase includes 2 4-story buildings containing 72 apartment units on the remaining 2.77 acres. Required stormwater detention basins will be constructed as part of each phase. The agreement will be applicable to only phases 2 and 3 of the development, as phase 1 has already been completed and was approved through a separate development agreement. And I do have a chart here on the screen to kind of give you an idea of how the layout of the site is going to work. We see phase 1 at 88 units, 2 as 80, phase 3 as 72, so on and so forth. Maximum building height, again, for the development code is 40 feet. In this case, it's going to go up to 49 feet. And then there are 4 stories proposed for each. Mm-hmm. So with that, let me start off with the first condition. First talk about the off-street parking reduction. The minimum off-street parking requirements for apartment spaces provided in the Service to Development Code do not account for the reduced parking demand associated with senior living. According to the applicant, he states that our experience for virtually all communities developed through the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program is that no more than one parking space is needed per apartment in the community, and that less than one parking space is needed per apartment for senior community development through this program. And staff has not been aware of any parking problems associated with the first phase of the completion of this project since it was completed 5 years ago, and finds the proposed number of spaces to be adequate for senior living community. So I do have a chart on here on what's being proposed for off-street parking. We see in phase 2 that there will be, the development code will require 148 parking spaces. They're proposing 84. Phase 3 require 136 parking spaces, and they are proposing 95. And you see that the parking ratios are basically range from 1.05 to 1.31, and that the development code would typically require 1.85, 1.88 for these number of units in this apartment complex. So there is a substantial reduction from 1.91 to 1.14, but again, the applicant has stated that based on his experience, and there are a number of studies online as well that have indicated that there's typically needs to be a 1-to-1 ratio for parking for senior low-income apartments, and that is in alignment with what he's proposing here.
And Mr. Pregler, even with phase 1, and that's enough to accommodate any visitors coming and all of that, and they've not had any problems.
Mayor Mueller, Council Member Wolf, that is correct. Staff also drove by a couple of occasions to verify this, and the parking lot was probably 75% full at the most. So I have not seen any parking issues associated with this project. Okay. So the next condition in the agreement relates to building height. So the condition states that the agreement will provide a 9-foot increase to the maximum building height of 40 feet to enhance the architectural design and appearance. So rather than going from 40 feet, they're going to propose to go to 49 feet, which will typically be at the top of the parapet and the top of the pyramid-shaped roofs. And you can see here, this is for phase 1. These were some of the building elevations for phase 1, and you can kind of see the building elevations. They do have the parapet roofs, the pyramid style rooftops, and so that brings up to about 49 feet for the overall height of the apartment complex.
Mr. Pregler, I remember when we did this before for that first phase, I had some concerns about 4 stories. Didn't we have to do, what was it called, a variance or something for 4 stories? That's not an approved height for...
I think it's 5, isn't it, Jeff?
Well, in this case, it is 4 stories. The development code allows 4-story apartment complexes at 40 feet in height. So that's what this agreement is for, and that's what the agreement was last time, to allow that additional height of 9 feet.
The 49?
Right.
Oh, you know, that first section kind of sits there. There's not really any housing across from it because Timothy Lane is there. Phase 2 also looks like it doesn't have any housing across the street from it. It's still sort of by Timothy Lane. But that phase 3, doesn't it, from that picture or the one before that? Phase 3 is right in front of those houses.
It's in back of the houses.
Yeah, Mayor
Oh,
Mueller.
that's even worse,
Councilmember
actually.
Calhoun, you are correct. Phase 3 will be a lot closer to the subdivision than the previous 2 phases. Keep in mind, there will be required to have buffering requirements, setback requirements, to ensure that there's minimal impact on those residences to the east.
You know, what's a shame is that, this is just editorial, I guess. What's a shame is that they've had unfettered view for all these many years, and now we're going to put an apartment building right in their backyard. I really think that's sad.
Well, right now they got Buffalo Soldier Trail in their backyard. That doesn't do the view, but that's the noise. At least the apartment could in fact decrease some of the noise too, so.
Well, I'll have to
mean-
put myself in their place
Yeah,
and see
well,
if that
no.
would matter to me.
And again, from looking at this is obviously an older,
Neighbor.
photograph we have here,
Oh.
but when I try to look at the trees in the backyard, and the last time I actually walked that, I'm not sure they have unfettered views of the mountains.
Well, it's, as I said, I'm not making a formal complaint, I'm just making a comment.
Yeah.
And something to think about. But phase two, now, it will be partially in front of that that end of the housing, won't it?
Yeah, Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Calhoun, based on the images that have been sent to the city, that is correct. There will be some of phase two will be behind some of the phase three housing in the subdivision.
Well, there are no promises in life, and there's always changes, so I suppose. Do we have any plans to say anything to those people that they'll have this wonderful protection against the noise from Buffalo Soldier Trail coming soon? Do we do anything? Do we need to do anything like that?
Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Calhoun, to answer your question, the zoning is in place for apartment complexes. So typically we notify the public neighboring property owners if there's a discretionary permit, like a conditional use permit or a rezoning, that type of thing. In this case, the zoning's in place, so we don't typically notify adjacent property owners of an approved right, if you will, to construct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The multi-use path that connects Timothy Lane Park to Golf Links Trail, is that owned by the city or is that put in by the apartments?
Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Pacheco, that is owned by the city. There's actually an alleyway that separates the applicant's property from the park, and the alleyway is where that multi-use path is located, and it's a drainage way which is owned by the city.
Okay,
It's
Yeah.
good to know.
then we could still run on it.
Or swim, depending on the season.
I wouldn't have even noticed the drainage way. I run on that all the time. Okay.
Okay, building separation. So the third condition of the agreement provides a 10-foot reduction to the minimum building separation requirements of 30 feet. So it'll go from 30 feet to 20 feet. The decrease in building separation is necessary to accommodate the required landscape buffers, stormwater detention basin, and amenity areas. The buildings will be constructed in an approved manner using fire-rated materials to comply with city code, city's building and fire safety codes. And I did contact the fire marshal and the building official, and they were both in agreement that this would be safe, provided they meet the construction materials accordingly. There's fire-rated materials to ensure that fire would be reduced if it won't spread from building to building. So that was their concern, and the applicant has stated that will be the case. Okay, the next will be the driveway access. So the developer will be allowed to construct a portion of the Carmichael right-of-way to private roadway construction standards. Now, the exhibit depicts the applicant segment of the road right-of-way that dead ends approximately 300 feet south of Timothy Lane Drive. The developer desires to narrow the pavement width to slow traffic entering the complex. South Carmichael is designed as a local residential street, which would typically require a minimum constructed street width of 34 feet. The minimum constructed street width for private streets is 26 feet. The Public Works has agreed to the reduction of this portion of roadway, provided the developer is responsible for all maintenance, which will be memorialized by this agreement, by a separate agreement, excuse me. So any questions about this? Yes.
Question on that. So we just spent, I don't know if we use CDBG on it or if we use city money on it. We just built that whole new walkway. It's not pictured here with the roundabout and the walkway and everything. Are we gonna tear up like what we just spent money building?
Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Pacheco, the area you're referring to is actually on the Timothy Lane property itself. It's not
Okay.
actually in the Carmichael right-of-way.
On the right.
So it's still, what you see in that photograph there is that the Carmichael right-of-way south of Timothy Lane is actually not improved. It's still a dirt roadway. So the applicant is proposing to improve that entire section, except that last 300 feet where they're proposing to narrow the roadway to reduce some of the speeding aspects of the vehicles as they enter the development. Okay. Okay, so the fifth condition of the agreement reduces the minimum lot area required per unit from 1,740 square feet to 1,279 square feet for phase 2, and 1,676 square feet for phase 3, as shown in the table. And again, the reason they want to do this is they want to ensure they get the maximum density possible to meet the tax credit requirements. So they're asking for a lot of this, the increase in density to allow this to happen. And they still get the amenities, they still get the pool, they still get everything else at the same time. So. Okay. Next, looks like the header is incorrect. The sewer connection fee deferral, which would be the final condition. It will require the sewer connection fee to be paid over a period of 10 years, commencing with the issuance of the first building permit of each phase. And you can see the breakdown on the slide in front of you. And this, by the way, this payment schedule that you see was the same payment schedule that was used for phase 1. So this is the exact same condition that was in the development agreement for the phase 1.
The prices didn't go up.
Apparently not.
That's
I
hard to
did
believe.
talk to the finance director, and he indicated that these numbers would be adequate. So.
Okay.
And finally, I do want to mention that there is compliance with city policy regarding this development agreement. Of course, the infill incentive district allows for development code waivers within this area. General Plan Goal 12-1 does promote quality affordable housing. General Plan Goal 12-8 does promote increasing housing choices that serve all age groups and needs. So this concludes staff support.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Pregler, for phase 1, how full are those apartments?
They are at full capacity, 100%, which is why there is a need for additional housing.
It's usually a wait list, right?
Yeah, that is correct. There is a wait
Because
list.
they're income qualified apartments, and they usually have a wait list to get into them.
That's correct. There is a wait list for these.
And they're the only apartments like that in our city.
Any other questions? I got a couple. Unless, Gwen, you get something?
I was just curious about when are they starting and when do they expect to finish?
Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Calhoun, the applicant has the site plans being developed even as we speak. They do plan on submitting for the next couple of months. They're looking at starting construction probably, within 3 or 4 months, and definitely by the mid next year, certainly have something that's ready to be finalized and completed. They definitely want to move on it as soon as possible.
Thank you.
That was part of my question too, Gwen, so thank you. When I look at your compliance with city policy, if the people I've been talking to in the real estate market basically said affordable housing is at a premium right now, so it's important that we move on to something like this, and the fact that it serves all age groups is a bonus. So I think it's important that we continue to work with the developer to get the first 3 buildings and then the last 2. And Jeff, could you go back to the map that shows the 3 phases?
Sure.
That one.
Actually,
Yeah, there you go. That's good. On the complete south end of the phase 3 there, you got the little diamond that's on the left, and it doesn't say detention basin in the little area, but I'm assuming that's the detention basin on the south end.
that is correct.
And that's the other thing that's important here too is if you've been out on Timothy Lane, the west end of Timothy Lane, when we do get heavy rains, we have Timothy Lane Lake there for a while just north of the park.
We do.
And the reason that we have that is because everything runs from the mountains and Buffalo Soldier Trail across phase 2 and phase 3 through the park and
That's bad.
onto Timothy Lane. Now on our side, on the west side of the park, we've actually got some detention basins, and I haven't seen a heavy rainfall since that's been in But the heaviest rainfall, it didn't work very well, so it's important that we also get the detention basin on the south end as well as one in south end of phase two to operate properly, so we don't continue to have water washing through the old Solgar subdivision on a regular basis every time it rains. So there's a couple of reasons why it's important to do this now, and it's for the betterment of the city, in my opinion. So I just thought I'd throw those out there so you guys can know what I'm thinking.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Really
Yes,
good
ma'am.
point.
So can I clarify that these apartments cater to age 55 plus income qualified, but it also developmental disability, like those with disability that don't have to be 55?
My understanding is it's age restricted only. I don't believe developmental
Yeah.
disabilities
Yeah,
are
that's
part
what
of
my
that.
understanding was too.
Would you double check that for us?
I will check.
I thought that too.
I
The
thought that
problem,
was
the
just.
problem with being, developmental disability is, and this came up in the first phase when they did it, originally they were talking about putting in elevators. And as you can see from the drawings, everything's got stairways.
Yeah.
So that means those folks would only be on the first floor and they'd have to have obviously the special access to be able to get in and out of their apartments. So it may, that may be a tough nut to crack, but that's something we need in the community.
Yeah,
There
I
are
thought
no-
that was a housing classification that it included both, but,
I think so.
or like
There are
the
no
grants that
elevators?
you fit
No,
under.
ma'am.
No, it's all, can you go back to
There
the,
are
There are
elevators.
elevators.
are there elevators? I thought there
On
was
the
all
inside.
exterior.
On the
All
inside.
exterior.
Yeah, there's some
Oh, yeah,
elevator
inside.
On
shafts.
the inside
Okay.
of them.
All right, I'm
I've been
mistaken
in
then.
there.
Okay, you've been in there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was all stairways. Maybe I'm thinking of the one that's over by the mall.
That's correct.
Yeah, those
Okay, I got
are only
confused between the-
stairs.
Yeah, I got confused
Those
between the two.
condos.
The condos over by the mall don't have elevators. Okay.
I
Can
do
we-
not believe these are developmental disabilities.
Thursday, can we get clarification on what's the proposal? I thought it was 55 plus. I didn't think
It
it was
is.
anything else, but.
Yeah, but we just get that clarified for us, Jeff. We'd appreciate it. Verify it for us.
Who qualifies?
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Pregler on this item?
Is there any, I guess this is really only, this is beyond just this one project. Is there any, plans in the city, have we made any conversation about using greener ways of doing things than not? Do we
That's a big subject.
yeah, it is. Have we, I don't recall that
Well,
we've ever,
We do have a number of codes that deal specifically with water.
like the basins.
Yeah, the basins and and I don't know what the restrictions is on apartment complexes for water usage and hot water and all the other things.
Or
But
water collection.
We'd have to go back and look at that. Obviously, there currently is airscape there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a number of site restrictions that would limit the amount of water that's used. Of course, turf being one of those restrictions. Low water, drought tolerant plants. We also encourage people to do water harvesting with a lot of their landscaping.
That's what I was.
So direct some of the gutters towards the landscape areas to help water some of those plants.
What about,
We don't require them to have, use their power from the sun or wind power, so it's kind of
not
limited.
yet,
Yeah,
not yet.
well.
What about permeable, surface for the parking lot? We haven't had any conversations.
We don't require that, but that is in the code. If they wanted to put it in, they could do it.
They haven't proposed anything like that, though, have
Not at
they?
this point. Nothing's been
And,
submitted
yeah,
to the city.
and this one's far along. I wouldn't expect to make any suggestions
Drastic
around that,
changes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just curious, been reading some stuff lately. I'm dangerous when I read a little bit,
You start reading, you start thinking,
Uh-huh.
Lord knows what's going to happen
and
next.
heaven knows.
I will say that the city is currently working, the staff is currently working on revising our water conservation codes. We'll be coming to you probably in about 2 or 3 months.
Oh, good.
So there might be some things in there you might be interested in.
I'll be out there.
So any other questions for Mr. Pregler? Yes, ma'am.
The city does have energy efficiency codes built into its building codes. If you want more detail on that, I'm sure Mr. Pregler or Mr. McLaughlin could fill in more details.
That's great. Energy efficiency code, that's cool.
Okay.
Thank you, thanks.
All right, then we'll go on. Thank you, Jeff. We'll go on to item number 4, which is I can't speak, the adoption of the land use assumptions and infrastructure improvement plan. Mr. Felix.
Mayor, members of council, you guys are really gonna be sick of this presentation by the time we're all said and done with these. As part of the four-step process in developing and implementing new impact development fees, this is step 2. You guys have already done the public hearing. Now you vote on the land use assumptions. To kind of recap, for the police, fire, and parks development fee, we're doing the buy-in approach because development did not occur at the rate expected, so all of those things have excess capacity. Those funds have negative fund balances, so we've calculated the fees to buy in and make those funds whole. The infrastructure fund is done in advance. We are expecting a half-lane mile of roadway. Thanks to the new law, we do not have to specify which road it exactly is, so depending on where Castle and Cook wishes to start the tribute plan, either off of the extending BSP or taking its Avenida Cochise in one direction, or the one by the hospital farther south that Chaparral Village neighborhood is off of, and extend that one further south. We have the flexibility to go whichever road we need to. Again, a key point is these are redone every 3 to 5 years. We are currently, this is 2000, the last ones we did were in 2016, so as things change in the community, this is actually a relatively quick item in the grand scheme of things to update and change how it goes. Saving files here. So for the fire buy-in, we are buying in for the Station 3 and the apparatus that is there. You can see the buy-in estimate. For the parks, the biggest thing is this is Sears Center Park, the whole thing. This is before the turfing. This is the playground equipment, the original base for all the fields that are in there, and the extension, the parking lot, and all of that. For the police station, it is the police station expansion over there with the to the south side of the building. For the streets, as I said, it's a half-lane mile of road and one intersection, whichever part of town that may be. The summary of the costs involved with that is here. And then the land use assumptions, the consultant has looked at what has been going on in the community, the expectations from community development coming in, and they've come up with an estimated growth rate, as you can see over time. Again, things change quickly, as we saw in 2006, 2008, and again in 2015. Things can change pretty quickly, hence the 3-year redo on them. So you will be approving these numbers and what we're going to spend it on Thursday night. Then in October, the proposed fees will come forward to you for a public hearing, and they'll be at a public hearing for a while, about at least 30 days. You will vote on them in December. I'll have the final schedule up there. At any time in here, public can receive input. We have received no input on any of the land use assumption or infrastructure improvement plans as proposed. So as you can see, in 2006, the original fees were $53.54, which is pretty close to what we're recommending this time for things. If you take the 2006 and use the construction cost index to increase it, it would be $7,200 in today's dollars. The current fees at 100% are about $4,100. If you did take those and increase them in today's dollars, there's actually 12% increase in the construction cost index between 2016 and now. Those fees would be about $4,400. And then when you increase the sales tax into there, you're actually in real dollars having a decrease between the construction sales tax and the rate of what it should be if you index it for the cost of construction inflation. So again, you had a public hearing on the land use assumptions. Thursday night, you'll vote on the land use assumptions and the plan. On the 22nd of October, you will have a public hearing on the fees. You get to hear this all over again. And finally, on December 10th, you will vote on the proposed fees. And after the fees are adopted, if you approve them, we'll be voting at the 100% you'll be voting on reducing the construction sales tax from 2.45% to 1.95%. You'll have the fees at 100%, and the construction sales tax offset will be gone. And then we're proposing March 1st for them to go into effect. That gives plenty of time for the Department of Revenue to get notices out and for the builders to get their stuff done if they need to make any changes. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
David, I appreciate the light speed, but I need you to go back. I need you to go back a few slides. Go one more. There we go. Okay. Obviously, when I see red numbers, you know me, I get excited.
Yes.
Because that usually means a deficit of some type. But the way I look at this, when you talk about the ones that are red, they're on the bottom slide. That's money on paper that we owe ourselves
Yes, that is
for
correct.
this program. It's
is
not
correct.
real cash.
Correct.
Okay. I think
The
that's
capital
important for
improvements are-
everybody to know.
Yes.
That's a planning, a method, whatever. And we probably should not be concerned if you look at the fire development fees, that by this plan, we still don't get, obviously, if I have 133,400, 188 in the hole, is what this shows. And in the next 10 years, I'm only gonna get 1,044,000. That tells me I'm still gonna be in a hole. However, it's not real cash. It's an accounting thing. It's on the books. We still gonna have to find somewhere in the next, as we do the next cycle, find how we're gonna meet that requirement if the population growth doesn't change.
Correct.
So
And
there's
what
a little bit of kabuki thing going on here
that's correct.
in shadows.
These are accounting rules and
Accounting
state law
trick.
rules.
Yeah,
Accounting
accounting
trickery
tricks.
and state law
Yeah, I got you.
requirements. So that's why it shows that way. These bonds have been paid. We're not delinquent on any bonds. And this is how you have excess capacity. We built it to make even numbers. Let's say we built all three of them expecting 10,000 people to show up over the last 3 years. Only 5,000 people showed up. They're built so we could have 5,000 people continue to move to the city, buy into
And
it.
that's why we go to the buy-in method for part of it rather than the old method.
That's correct.
Okay.
And what that also says is even with 10 years, they expect to still have excess capacity in the fire area.
Okay, but you know me, when I see 3.3 mil plus in the park development fees, that gets me excited,
Yes.
especially if we're in a hole.
Yes.
Okay, go to the next slide. Okay. Obviously, the population, you already talked about the population being dependent upon projections. So and really that's a best guess. And really the total housing units is based on is it 1.181 or 1.182 that we have now, or is that going up or down?
It's based off on what we have now.
Okay. And employment. Okay. And again, the commercial is our best guess on the projection as well for the commercial and industrial, assuming there's still gonna be some growth.
Mayor, can I ask on this? This is projection of growth in, so when you say multifamily units, for example, 300, like, units, meaning individual apartments?
Yes.
Or, okay, because
It's not 300 new
single
buildings.
family.
I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. So I was just trying to understand, you're anticipating 67 new industrial,
67,000 square feet
Square
of
feet.
industrial.
square feet, okay.
That's
Like
the other
six-
thing that's tricky about this is everything else is, some is square feet, some is individual, some is houses.
Okay,
Anything not residential
Yeah.
square feet.
So
okay.
that's why this chart can be very confusing. That's why I wanted to slow down a little bit. Okay.
Missed it.
What's the next one, David? And that's just the summary. Okay.
Summary.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
But no, I'm just wondering, David, I say thank you for the residential comparison. but where's the commercial comparison?
I can get that for you. I don't
That
have
would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. I think it's probably in the report, but
Yeah,
that's buried on my desk somewhere
Okay.
right now.
I'll get that for you.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you had mentioned when we talk about, just for clarification, I'm still wrapping my head around this concept. I've just put it out there for you all. But I'm still wrapping the head around it. But you talked about how the fire account was accounting for the new fire station that's planned, but you were talking about development fees coming in from Tribute, which is not really the same side of town. Or, I mean, they won't be using, not that everyone doesn't use all the fire stations, but do you know what I mean? Do we tie the development to the improvement? Because that's what I'm asking, I guess.
No, it's, the development is kind of in the whole city. For us, we have one development fee for the whole city. If you were to go to Goodyear or Surprise, you'll have development fee areas where your prices will go up significantly the further out of town you will get. So you can be in Surprise and pay a $20,000 per house impact fee if you're far enough away because of the infrastructure that's needed to go to your neighborhood. We have capacity in, like, for instance, the whole Chaparral Village area can be serviced by Station 3. That's the most recent one. That's also a very large station. It was built to kind of go all the way further down to Avenida Cochise. And that's where realistically, they expect development. And when they planned the location of Station 3, they put that off of where they expected the development at the time to occur. When Station 4 needs to go in to or 5, whichever you want to call it, to Tribute, that will be obviously servicing that area. That's not going to occur within the next 3 years. And that also will all depend on the development agreement we set up with Castle and Cook when they go to develop it. Because depending on where they're going to start to build, we may or may not need to build that right away.
Because we have the new development, all the development north of Savannah Drive, which will be impacted by the new fire station on 7th Street, but also the Canada Vista development between Coronado and Town and Country Drive. That
Yes.
would be, or Linsner, not Town and Country. But that would also be impacted by that fire station, so that makes sense, but.
Yeah, that's why it's like, for instance, the one off of Coronado, that's Station 1 and Station 2 services because they can get there quickly. And for EMS calls, that can easily be also serviced by the one that we're looking at on 7th Street.
Well, especially adding all these new apartments,
Also
the
close
fire
by.
station right there.
Well, that's why it's good.
That'd be really helpful.
That's why it's good we have a medical station going in that area as well, because that's, if it's over 55, chances are, that's who's gonna get the call.
They
is the
visit
medical.
often.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I would highly suggest if you see things here that making your head spin or causing you to scratch your noggin, get with David and go through this. Because it's not an easy thing, and we got time before we go through the process. Now is the time to get into it and understand it. Okay? Any other questions for David? All right, thank you. We now go on to Ms. Yarborough with the Consolidated Court Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I think council is well aware of the history of the court agreement at this point, so I'm not going to rehash that, though I can, of course, revisit it if anybody has any questions. But I will, of course, explain why we're here with this agreement today, and you're also well aware of the work that has gone on for the past year on updating the court funding methodology. The previous agreement was good for 1 year and it expired on June 30th, 2020. Staff was still working on that funding formula and the data collection in June, and so council approved an agreement at the beginning of July, and that agreement was forwarded on to the county. The Board of Supervisors disagreed with the stipulations that were added and proposed the agreement before you today, which is the same agreement but without the stipulations for the reporting requirements. This agreement is for 6 months ending on December 31st, 2020. I'm happy to report that I have much more data today than I did back in July, and that development of a new formula is going well. It is my intent to come back before the 6-month term is up with an updated agreement and a new funding formula. There is one change to the agreement before you, which I'll make and change the file out after the meeting, and that is simply, we looked at the agreement, and the county emailed me today, and we had included the $161,000 cost for the whole year. We're simply going to adjust Section 4, Duties of the City, Part D, and that will reflect that the cost for 6 months is $80,500, not the entire year's cost of $161,000. I did mistakenly also put that the county had already approved this agreement. They have not. They're waiting for Sierra Vista to approve it first, and it is scheduled for their September 29th board meeting. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the assistant city manager? Okay, we went through that. We've been through this a couple times, so I'm not surprised we don't have any questions. Next, we'll go to Ms. Calhoun has a proposal about the Hummingbird Capital.
I do. Mayor, you may recall, at some point when I first got on council, I don't know if I was flippant about it, but I did ask.
You flip it. Oh, good.
I did ask, how did we become the hummingbird capital of the world or the United States? And you said we kind of had adopted that as who we are, and we've just always been that way. Well, I've spoken to the old timers I could find. No, I'm kidding.
I wasn't old enough, huh? That's okay. I wasn't old enough. I can live with that.
I know some folks who, went to high school here and grew up in this area, and they just had always known that it was the hummingbird capital of the United States. But then again, about a few months ago, I was reading an article, and there's a town up north that is the granite capital of the United States. And the article went on to say that it was a developer who decided to call it that, and they had it approved by their state legislator. So that's when I came in and said, well, why don't we do that? Why don't we get it approved by our state legislators, or not approved, but brought before the legislature, and see if they would approve, and then it would be official, and we could officially call ourselves that. So thanks to Judy Hector, a lot of information was pulled together on why we felt we could do this. And that's the document you have in front, or the paper you have in front of you. And it just states a lot of examples about the hummingbirds who visit this area, that we have 14 out of 15 of the hummingbird species that visit our area, that we get a lot of birders who come to see the hummingbirds, that we have within, not exactly within our city limits, but within our area, the Hummingbird Preserve that the Nature Conservancy protects. And so to me, that gave us a lot of reasons to be called the Hummingbird Capital. Mm-hmm. So my question was, do you think we have enough information here that would warrant? I did speak to Gail Griffin, one of our representatives, and she said she would take the idea to the legislature. So the only thing I haven't done is talk to Ramsey Canyon to see if they would, see how they would feel about this. I don't think it's, I looked through some of their literature, their pamphlets and stuff. I didn't see them refer to themselves as the Hummingbird Capital in their paperwork, so I'm not sure how seriously they take it. So, any ideas, comments, suggestions?
Well, the first question is, is there anybody that's opposed to this idea?
Sure.
Okay, I'm not seeing any no's. So the question then becomes, what's the best way to do it? Do we do a do we put it, a non-binding ordinance from the council where everybody approves it and make a proclamation, or do we just do the mayor's proclamation?
Do we?
And then you use that as the basis for Gail to go to the legislature.
And then we need to have a hummingbird festival every year.
There are communities
Well, we
in the
can-
country that have
We can have the
hummingbird.
Hummingbird Wine Festival.
But it could be the hummingbird wine festival.
There you go.
That also, I think
Band
there's
to it,
Well,
other
it
Just
lends
a
itself to
bit.
a lot of different activities.
Yeah, let's
There
hype
are
it up,
communities that do that. There are communities that do major banding events that get hundreds of thousands of people that come in. And, we could move in that direction too if we chose to with the Friends of the, is that who does it now? The Audubon Society, Friends of the San Pedro?
Audubon Society and
Says the banding.
the
It would just-
Nature Conservancy do that as well.
Okay. So, and I don't know, which I think it's nice if the council shows their support for
Okay.
something.
So what I would ask you to do, if there are no objections, is to draft a resolution, and of course you work with the staff, that covers the information here, hits the high points. And we do a resolution from council declaring ourselves the hummingbird capital of the United States, and then have Gail take that with her in her little portfolio for whenever the legislature gets in session,
Okay.
and see if she can get it through the legislature as a, what do they call that? It's a non-binding resolution, but I mean, there's a special name for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask Jill, do we know if any council has ever done this for the city? Like, would there be something in the file
Not to my
somewhere?
knowledge, but I can certainly look through,
Way
but
to
I,
search?
yeah, I don't believe that we did.
I don't think we've ever done anything officially like this, at least in my memory. Then maybe talk to some of your old timers.
Yeah, a lot of people weren't paying attention to what was going on at the city council. Not like they
No.
do today.
No, I don't get any emails.
So, okay, I'll ask for Jill to work with this, and then what, it comes back to
And
the
then we'll come
council?
back to us as a resolution, we would vote on it, discuss it and vote on it.
Okay,
And then we forward it with the plan of forwarding it through all three of our legislators, hopefully. Take it next year to the
okay.
state
I
legislature.
I know in a time when there's so much serious stuff going on, this is a little bit lightweight, but it just happened at this time that it came up, so.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
any questions, any further discussion?
And if anybody has any other information to add to this, like if you talk to somebody who knows, it's helpful to have any more we can put to it.
I think we could add to it like a photo of, when you bring it to the state, if you want to put together a nice
Little fancy packet.
fancy packet, the hummingbird mural, stuff of information about
Oh, that's
the
a good
hummingbird
idea.
banding, and you got to sell it.
The mural would be
Yep.
nice too to add.
Okay.
Thanks, good idea.
All right, we now move on to item C, which is report on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. I'm trying to think.
League.
League, you want to give the league update for the league meeting this week?
Sure. So I'll just say that I was very impressed with the way they handled it, and the presentations were very professionally done. And they're available on their YouTube channel if you didn't get a chance to. The one about the reading the tea leaves is especially just interesting. So, but I did go on behalf of the city to the resolutions meeting where there were a couple of resolutions being proposed. One to shorten the years of terms for the
Executive board officers.
executive board officers from 2 years down to 1 year. That did not pass, which I believe was the right decision, so they will stay at 2 years. And the other was I'm drawing a blank on what the other one was right at this moment. It did not pass, so it obviously
doesn't
didn't matter. So they chose to just keep things the way they are. Felt like things were running very smoothly, and yeah. So and then we also appointed some other officers to the board. I think a switch out kind of thing. Their terms, some terms that expired and they needed to be renewed. So that was the gist of that. So, but I would recommend looking at the sessions on the Arizona League of Cities YouTube channel. They're very informative.
Okay.
And next year, hopefully with the COVID gone, the meeting will be in Glendale like it was originally scheduled this year. I also have this week I also have a Zoom meeting with the executive board with the league. We're not really doing a whole lot on the executive board other than discussing how we're changing the rating of the executive director and how he's rated. So that's really the only meaty thing on there. Everything else is pretty much routine. I have my office call with General Hale on Friday in my office, where we're going to talk about what's going on in the city, what our past relationships, what we hope to do in the future, and that type of thing. So, and that's something I normally do with the new general officers when they come in. So we'll do that on Friday. And it's basically to get him up to speed on what's going on in the community. So.
Mayor, I forgot one thing.
Oh, you did?
I did. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
So I'm also on the, depending on who you talk to, what it's called, but it's the Military Affairs, Public Safety, Public something, and the chair calls it the MAPS. That's not what the league calls it. Tony Boone and I had done a presentation to that committee to ask for a resolution to take before the state legislature to reconvene the Military Affairs Commission, which has not met since 2017, I believe, when they did a review of the McGuire study. We feel that it's very important they reconvene, especially with tourism coming down and will be lower in Arizona for the foreseeable future due to COVID, that more emphasis from the state, it would behoove the state to put more emphasis on military installations, which put billions of dollars into our economy. We chose not to make that a resolution, but instead to work together as a committee to do some letters of support and to work together to try to get the governor to just go ahead and reconvene that. And from there, we'll address other issues like encroachment upon military installations and how much money is going into the military installation fund and those kind of things. But the first thing we've got to do is to get that MAC committee reconvened. So we're working on that in partnership with the league. And I promise that was it.
You know, on that subject, since I'm a member of that
Yes,
commission,
you are.
and even though it took me 2 years to renew my membership, I have talked to the one of the co-chairs about the same issue, and so at least the co-chairs understand
Good.
where we're coming from.
Good.
All we got to do is get to the governor's office.
Yep.
Okay.
That looked pretty positive.
Well, there's some challenges with the governor's office because his main liaison moved on, and they had a replacement, and she didn't work out, and so there's some staffing issues that we're kind of working through from the administrative side. So hopefully that won't be a challenge, but you never know.
Is that usually an active duty person?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, the General McGuire, who's the tag, the adjutant general, also sits on the Military Affairs Commission representing the state, but he's not the chair.
He's an advisor. Right?
He's a member of the board. He advises the governor.
Okay.
So it's kind of a unique lash up there. Any other report on trips, meetings, future meetings? Okay. Future discussion items. Do we have any on the list already other than hummingbirds?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Calhoun requested at the next work session that we invite the gentleman who gave the presentation at the last council meeting on passenger rails. We're reaching out to them to invite them to the next meeting, and then your.
What's the goal? What's the goal there?
Oh, good question. I kind of let that one slip aside. The goal would be whether the council or the city at least supports that their efforts to have a more permanent, regular train stop in Benson. In Sierra Vista, no, in Benson. So it'd just be showing support that we would think it would be a good thing that we had regular passenger train service.
So again, it's a resolution of support.
Yeah.
That would need to come on the,
And our packet had a sample,
okay.
but I didn't
So,
give it to you, so.
What really needs to happen there is if there are no objections again, and speak up, guys, to having a resolution of support for the transportation, for the train. I'm seeing a smile over here, so we'll, yes, ma'am.
I guess my question on whether or not, how much money does the government give to Amtrak and how much of it is a private owned corporation?
I don't know what the split is.
And because
But
to
it
me
is-
it
it's-
matters because I don't feel comfortable making a resolution on what a private corporation does. Now, and I know that the government does give some money, so I would need to, that's something that would be important to me before I would be willing
Did
to
you
do
get a
that.
copy of the packet?
I sure did,
Okay.
and none of that information is in there. I looked through it.
Okay. I kind of see it a little bit differently because we're actually supporting what the group is doing, not who they're doing it to. So it would sort of be
Okay,
like that.
So this needs to be scheduled, the discussion part of
Oh,
this needs to be
okay.
scheduled for work session,
Okay.
okay?
Is Benson reaching out to us?
Benson
for
has
any
not,
support?
this is the gentleman that was here.
Gentleman doing it. That's why I
With the
kind of
company.
put Christine on the same aspect.
So
That's what I was wondering. Okay.
if it's okay, we can put this on for discussion at the next work session.
Yeah, just until we hear from
And
them.
I wouldn't invite him until we figure out exactly, unless you wanna contact him, get some additional
Well, that's what I
information.
was gonna say. Maybe we need to know specifically what else people need to know. Do you wanna send me an email? So that, I kinda know what to ask. Is that what you want me to
Yeah,
do?
yes, ma'am,
Okay,
if you would.
sure.
Since
You know what,
you're the
we'll talk about
proponent
it
in this.
later. I'm the who?
Proponent
Oh, okay.
of this resolution, just
Ooh,
like the
I'm a
hummingbird, you're a
proponent.
proponent.
Is that with a capital P?
Of course.
Ooh.
Okay. Any other items?
Just your strategic plan report, your one-year report, Mayor. That's going to be the first meeting in October since I'll be on vacation at your next meeting.
Okay. All right. All right, then, you want to give us the current COVID-19 status report, please?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm pleased to report that once again, the numbers look like they're trending in the right direction. So as of this morning, the county was at 56 active cases, and the breakdown by zip code as of yesterday were 12 active cases in the 85635 zip code, 1 to 5 in 85650. Also 1 to 5 in each of Fort Huachuca, Hereford, and Whetstone. Still 0 in Bisbee, and 25 active cases in Douglas. So given that consistent trend over the past couple of weeks, the city opened up its lobbies as of today in all city buildings. The Cove also started offering lap swim once again by reservation. The library lobby is also open, as is their computer lab. And the cafe is also open, which I went over and took advantage of earlier today. The museum's also open with some abbreviated hours and visitor limits. So most things are in the process of reopening and hope to continue that as the numbers continue this hopefully consistent movement.
Questions for the Assistant City Manager on the opening or COVID?
What's the plan for, is it another week before we reevaluate for opening up the pottery studio?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Calhoun, I'd have to check in with Ms. Wilson on their plans for the pottery studio, but we'll certainly do that and let you know.
Okay, so what I really meant was just the next phase. Is that like within a week, do you think we'll be looking at it again? Is there a number we're looking
Well,
for?
I would think, based on the incubation period of 14 days,
Ooh,
it'd be a minimum of 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And again,
Memorial Day too.
well, or maybe more depending on what the numbers do.
Okay.
And the good thing is the hospital still has capacity. We're in better shape than the areas around us. Douglas is the one I'm thinking about. So we just need to be careful and think things through before we move. And it's gonna be slow to some people, they want this over with. Believe me, I understand that. But we need to do it in a manner that's safe for the community.
I think we've done very, very well. We kept our numbers pretty low.
Okay, any other questions, ma'am?
What's your thought on the mask proclamation?
There you go, that's what I was
Well,
gonna ask.
I ask you to come talk to me individually, so I can pick your brains, and nobody has done that yet.
Oh, you sure did.
So please come see me, call me, email me, whatever, and I'll be happy to share you my current thoughts. But again, we just had Labor Day yesterday,
Yeah, we wanted to wait till
and
Labor
it probably
Day.
won't be earlier than 14 days after that because of the incubation period. So we'll see what's going on, and that's all I'll say, but I want to get your input as well, rather than making the decision by myself. I kind of have an idea what we need to do, but I don't want to be sticking my big fat neck out there to be chopped off, cause other people to get sick because I've made a stupid decision. So I need your counsel. Okay. Anything else? All right. Hope to see everybody on Thursday. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, staff.
Hey, Ms. Quinn?